Hello, welcome back to my channel. You're watching What Helen Reads and I'm Helen, and today I have got a romance recommendation video for you all about scarred heroes and even one scarred heroine. So we'll kick straight off with Real Like Daydreams by Julia Wolfe, and this is book 4 of her Savage You series. And in this one we're following our scarred hero Julian and Serafina. So we've seen Julian in a couple of the previous books, and unfortunately in one of the books he is involved in a car accident which leaves him with some scars to his face on one side, but also he's left him with some mobility issues with damage to his leg. So he's currently undertaking physiotherapy in order for him to help with the pain, but also to rehabilitate him so that he is more able to walk. And so he's at this stage in this book where he's lost quite a lot of his confidence. He is quite depressed about what's happened. He has distanced himself from his friends and he spends a lot of time by himself in his room. He's in a lot of pain, so he's often, you know, quite frustrated and angry, and is struggling to come to terms with his new reality. Serafina, on the other hand, is someone also that we've seen in a couple of the other books, and she is a drummer in the marching band at Savage You, and she previously had a boyfriend who cheated on her. Everyone found out, so she's sort of a bit of the laughingstock. She's very embarrassed about what happened, and now she is on her own. Now, as I mentioned, Serafina is in the marching band and it's her dream to become the drum captain, but also vying for the same position is her ex-boyfriend. So she's desperate to get the position over him. And basically how you pretty much get to be drum captain is by other people in the band voting for you. Now, Julian and Serafina happen to be in the same class as each other, a couple of the same classes as each other, and in one particular class Julian has a bit of a confrontation with the current drum captain and embarrasses the drum captain, who is not happy about what's happened. So he makes a deal with Serafina and sort of says, I will vote for you and I will encourage everyone else to vote for you to be the next drum captain, so succeeding me next term. So you'll get what you want, but in return I want you to help me get revenge on Julian for what's just happened. I want you to befriend him, make him think that you care about him, start a relationship with him, and then I want you to dump him so that you break his heart, and then that'll be the revenge that I need and I'll get you to be the drum captain. Now, Serafina agrees to this because she really wants to be drum captain, but she also really likes Julian. So she decides that she's actually going to tell Julian the truth and says, hey, I need your help. I need to pretend to be your girlfriend, pretend to get you to fall in love with me, and then dump you so that I get a chance at being drum captain. And Julian decides he is going to help her out and they agree to it. But in return he wants something for himself as well. Now, he's sort of run out of money and can't afford any more physiotherapy, and Serafina happens to be studying for a very sort of similar sort of profession where she has got a little bit of experience and can help him join and help him with his physiotherapy. And so she agrees to help him do that in exchange for being her fake boyfriend. And so this is how their relationship starts. They get to know each other really well. She spends a lot more time with him. She helps him come out of his shell. She gives him more confidence. She helps him bridge his bridge the gap in the relationship that he's had with his friends, and ultimately they kind of end up falling for each other. There's loads of other stuff that goes on in this book, but I absolutely loved it when I read it at the time. In fact, the whole series is absolutely fantastic, but I really like this book and would highly recommend. So the next scarred hero is Drago from Silent Lies by Neva, Altaj, and this is a Serbian mafia romance, which is book 8 of the Perfectly Imperfect series, and it's the latest one that's recently been released. So this is an age gap arranged marriage, but like I say, Drago is actually a scarred hero. When he was a little boy, his parents were attacked and his house was set on fire, and during the fire his parents died, but he attempted to save his 2 sisters, and in doing so he has got a lot of scars from when he was burned during this particular incident. So he's got like burn scars sort of from his neck, shoulders, back, and parts of his chest as well. Now he's mostly covered these up with tattoos, but they're still fairly prominent. Now the heroine in this one is Sienna, and she is part of the Cosa Nostra mafia. She's one of their princesses, and the head of the Cosa Nostra asks Sienna to get married to Drago as an arranged marriage, but actually what they want from her is to go in to this Serbian mafia and basically be the spy and report back. It happens that Sienna is really, really good with languages, and she can pick them up really quickly. So it takes a couple of months for this arranged marriage to sort of be approved and wait for the wedding date, etc. So she's got a couple of months to learn the Serbian language, which she does. And so she goes in there with the full intention of following through with this, you know, listening in on conversations, reporting back to the head of the Cosa Nostra, and kind of, you know, spilling Drago's secrets. The thing is, he's pretty suspicious from the beginning anyway, and kind of twigs on that she has been sent very much to do some spying on him. So he doesn't really give her any information. She doesn't really have access to any information, but still he doesn't actually realise that she can speak Serbian, and so she is able to overhear some things. Of course, it doesn't really last too long because Sienna falls for Drago pretty quickly, and she doesn't really want to spy on him or report back anymore. But I absolutely love this one. Sienna has also got a, you know, a troubled past. And she blames herself for a lot of things, and she hides her guilt for things that have happened in her past through this very, very larger than life, very sparkly personality, and her very, very colourful and flamboyant wardrobe. She wears a lot of bright colours, feathers, tinsel, glitter, bows, you name it, she wears it, and it's a very endearing quality. And Drago just absolutely falls in head over heels in love with her, and loves her for all of her little quirks. So he ends up forgiving her for being a bit of a spy. But yeah, I highly recommend this one, and a fabulous scarred hero. So then we've got Tied by Carian Cole, and this is book 2 in the All Turn Up series, and in this one we're following Holly and Tyler. Now Tyler is our scarred hero. He is a recluse. He lives alone in a cabin in the woods essentially, and he's estranged from his family. At first, when we first read the book, we don't know why, and we learn more about what's happened and why he's secluded himself and why he's estranged from the family, etc. But he is very much known as this sort of like hulking, quiet man. He doesn't speak, and he drives a motorbike. So there's kind of a legend that he drives around at night on his motorbike wearing a mask, basically, to cover his face. Now our heroine is Holly, and Holly was kidnapped when she was a little girl and held captive for 11 years. So she has very, very traumatic past, and was brought up in an environment where she was very much on her own, completely beholden to the man who captured her, spent a lot of time on her own, but didn't really learn how to socialise and how to be part of normal society. She's actually rescued by Tyler because 11 years after she's captured, Tyler happens to be walking through the woods and hears her cries, and she's basically been put into a hole in the ground. Now Tyler rescues her from this hole, and her captor comes along while he's rescuing her, and he ends up unaliving her captive. And so the police obviously come, and Holly's reunited with her family, and Tyler goes back to the cabin in the woods. But Holly doesn't forget Tyler at all. In fact, she becomes obsessed with him and obsessed with finding him. And when her parents can't deal with her because she is so different from the little girl that went missing, and they don't know how to kind of address what's happened to her, how to help her, and so they decide that they're going to put her into kind of a sort of sheltered accommodation, which is kind of connected to a hospital where she can, you know, she has her own place where she can stay, but she's very much looked after kind of by doctors and psychiatric care. And they very much tell her to stay away from Tyler. They say he's bad news, you don't want anything to do with him. But Holly, like I say, is obsessed with finding her hero, what she thinks is her hero, the person that rescued her. And so she starts going out every day, walking through the woods, trying to find Tyler. And eventually she does come across him. They end up having a conversation, well, one-sided conversation, because he doesn't really talk, and he lets her come back, and she comes back every day to spend time with him. And the more time they spend together, the more they start to heal each other's wounds, and they start relationships. So I absolutely love this one. I love Carian Cole's writing, and I personally really enjoyed this one. It is an age gap, and like I say, the hero is very scarred. They've both been through a lot of trauma, but together they really help each other, and yeah, end up with their own HEA. So would really recommend. So then the next one is Bound by Vengeance by Cora Reilly, and this is another mafia romance. This is book 5 in her Born in Blood mafia series, and in this one we're following Growl and Cora. Now Growl is actually the enforcer for the Cora mafia family, which is actually from Las Vegas, and it seems a bit of an odd jump in this particular series, but we later find out that Cora is actually related to the original family that we see in the other books in series 1. But Growl himself, he's our scarred and very troubled hero. He is feared by all. He's basically the enforcer, like I said, for the Cora family, and he's pretty much been raised as a bastard son. He has been tortured and very much misused, but it's made him the man he is, and he is known to be vicious, very cold-hearted, very lethal and brutal, and feared by everyone as this enforcer. The thing is, this is very much an outward only appearance. Inside, Growl is a very soft and emotional person, at least towards Cora, who he thinks is the most amazingly wonderful thing that's ever happened to him. So essentially what happens is Cora's father betrays the Cora mafia family, and so the family is basically punished, and Cora is given to Growl as a punishment. Growl is given Cora as a reward for being a loyal servant, but mostly because the head of the Cora basically believes that this will be a brilliant punishment for Cora, having to be handed over to Growl, who is clearly gonna mistreat her and be really horrible to her, and so it's going to be a fitting end for Cora and her family. The thing is, Growl absolutely is besotted with Cora, thinks she's the most wonderful thing he's ever been given, and he treats her like an absolutely precious prize. He's so soft and nice with her, and although she is forced to go and live with him, forced to be with him, he is loving and kind, and doesn't hurt a hair on her head. So I really like this one because I absolutely loved a scarred hero, but beyond that I loved like a tortured and troubled hero, and I love a sort of hero who everyone else fears, but for the woman that he loves he'll do anything for, and absolutely treats her like she is a queen, which I absolutely love. And in this one as well, Growl also rescues dogs who have, you know, been forced to into dog fighting, and so he also has a couple of dogs which are also scarred themselves, but are also massive softies and become very close with Cora as well. So I really like to see that in this book as well, and would highly recommend. So then I've got one that I've actually got the book for, and it is Cruel Enforcer by Maggie Cole, and this one is book 3 in the Mafia War series. In this one we're following Sergei, and he is one of the Ivanov brothers, and his heroine in this one is Cora. Now the reason I put this one in here is because Sergei had a very traumatic childhood, as did all the Ivanov men, and he was tortured and beaten when he was a small boy, so he has a lot of scarring to his back in particular, and he has had a lot of tattoos to cover his back, and he absolutely hates being touched. He hates anyone to touch his back where the scars are, because it kind of is a big trigger for him. So in this one, like I say, Sergei is one of the Ivanov brothers. He is the youngest brother, and he's had a girlfriend who he has really, you know, he's been in love with her and he wanted to get more serious and to settle down with this person, but they are, his girlfriend was a fashion model. She flew all over the world and she only flew into Chicago to have a way with Sergei whenever she was around, but didn't want to take the relationship seriously, and she messes Sergei around one too many times until eventually they split up. And this is when he ends up bumping into Cora. Cora is one of the friendship circle of the girls from this group and is one of the best friends from Aspen, who's the heroine from book 1. She's also Chicago's top divorce lawyer, and so she is very much a independent, strong woman, and Sergei absolutely loves that about her. Now, Cora has always struggled to get a boyfriend because she is too dominant, too independent for most men, but Sergei is way more manly and than any of her previous boyfriends, and is absolutely able to handle her, and not only that, he's able to dominate her as well. So in this one, it is a good spicy read. There is a little bit of a dom sub relationship going on here, a slight dynamic, and he also does take her to a sex club as well, which is sort of really interesting to see. But another great instalment in the Mafia War series, and would highly recommend. So then after that, I would recommend Grim and Bear It by Juliette Cross, and in this one we're following Henry and Clara, and this is book 6 in the Stay a Spell series. Now, Henry in this one is another scarred hero. He is a Grim, and what we come to learn about Henry is that he has a very disturbing power, and one where he is able to cross over into to the other side, basically, where people's spirits go when they die, but also there are some very, very dark entities in this place. And when Henry was young, he was tricked into going into the other side, where he was very much tormented and tortured by sort of demon-like creatures on the other side, and as a result he has got a lot of scarring to his body. Now, although that sounds very, very dark and foreboding, this book is actually quite light-hearted. The same with the whole Stay a Spell series, really. It is a warm, cozy read. There are definitely you know, it's a paranormal book, so there are definitely dark elements to it. Some dark things happen, but overall it doesn't go too dark and it stays very much in sort of like the light-hearted space. Now, at the start of this book, Henry's father is actually arrested for murder, and he needs his son's help. So his father needs Henry's help, basically, to prove that he didn't do it. And one of the ways he can prove he didn't do it is for Henry to cross over to the other side to speak to the victim, and find out who was actually the person that unalived her. And of course, Henry really doesn't want to do this. He's absolutely petrified to go to the other side. He's been working very, very hard for a number of years to ensure that this doesn't happen and he doesn't get pulled back to the other side. But when push comes to shove and he really needs to do it, he ends up having to go in. Now, we've seen Henry and Clara throughout this whole series. Clara has been besotted with Henry for, you know, all 6 books. She absolutely wants to be with him, and she's convinced that Henry does in fact feel the same about her as well. But no matter what she does, she can't seem to convince him to go on a date with her, and really it's because Henry is very worried about this dark side to him and what he's capable of, and he doesn't want to drag Clara into that, and worries that Clara might end up getting hurt. So he's been very much keeping her at arm's length until this book, when Clara has decided that she's absolutely had enough and she's going to force her way into his life and not take no for an answer. And again, while there's some dark elements to this, you know, the story in terms of what Henry has to do in order to prove that his dad is innocent, the romantic side and the relationship that he has with Clara and the rest of the family is absolutely fantastic, and it's a really, really great ending to the series as a whole, so would definitely recommend. Then the next one I want to talk about is Stray by Daisy Jane, and this is book 2 in the Men of Paradise series, and in this one we're following Bran and Elsie. Now, Bran's actual name is Brian, but they call him Bran because he's lost his eye. So his friends think this joke is absolutely hilarious, but of course, Bran, as he's called, is very, very traumatized by the fact that he has in fact lost his eye. Now, he lost his eye in a kind of a bar fight where he was protecting his sister, and he was injured quite badly where he lost his eye, and so he has some scarring to his face, but also he wears an eye patch. As a result of this, he's lost all confidence. He can't seem to get a girlfriend. He thinks that people are looking at him strangely, and you know, all of his dates end up being very, very disappointing and not working out, and women seem to be very turned off by this. So he's lost a lot of confidence. He's feeling very isolated, very alone, but of course he has got some very good friends who try and encourage him to date. Meanwhile, we've got Elsie, and she is our heroine, and she is a single mum. She has been struggling to look after a little girl, and she needs a little bit of extra cash on the side. So when a friend at work suggests that she become a dominant for cash, Elsie is very intrigued and decides to take her friend up on this offer. And essentially what happens is that men pay her to dominate them. So it's not a paid service for sex particularly, but it's a paid service to be dominated. Now, there's a little bit of miscommunication in here because the code for wanting to pay for a dominant talks about hiring a gym worker, and Bran happens to run a gym and he does need someone to work there, so he puts an ad in the paper for someone to come and work at his gym, and Elsie sees this ad in the paper and thinks that he is actually requesting a dominant. So she turns up for her interview in very interesting attire, and Bran is so taken aback by what's happening, he absolutely follows all of her commands and ends up going through with this scenario, this session that she puts together for him in his office. Now, it's not too long before he realises what's happened, and she's not actually there for an interview for an actual job, what she's there for, and Elsie realises that it was also a mistake. However, it's too late. Bran is absolutely hooked, and he pays for her services on more than one occasion, and eventually he doesn't want to pay for her services anymore because he actually wants to date her. And Elsie is very shy at first because, you know, she's worried about her child being a single mum and everything, and she's also got a very sick mother that she needs to take care of, and so she is a little bit hesitant at first, and Bran sort of mistakes that for the fact that he wears an eye patch and doesn't have an eye, but that is not the case at all. And when these two find happiness together, it's absolutely beautiful, and so I would really recommend. Then the final one I want to talk about is actually a scarred heroine, and our scarred heroine is Raina from this book Brutal Vows by J.T. Geissinger, which is book 4 in the Queens and Monsters series. Now, in this one we're following Raina and Spider. Now, Spider is the second in command of the Irish mafia, and he's been through a very, very tough time in the last couple of books, and he has also been heartbroken and also given up on love. So when he has an opportunity for an arranged marriage with a Italian mafia princess, he begs Declan to give him the chance to be the husband. And at first he is supposed to be arranged in marriage to Raina's niece, and Raina's niece is very young, so Spider would be a much older man, and Raina is not at all happy about this because she doesn't think that Spider was good enough for her niece, and she makes the situation very difficult. And in addition, her niece is actually in love with somebody else, and he's very unhappy and doesn't want to marry Spider. And when he realises what's going on, they end up striking a deal where he'll marry Raina instead. The thing is, Raina is actually a widow. She's already been married once before, and she's vowed never to get married again because her husband was extremely abusive towards her, and she is known as a Black Widow because her husband met an untimely death, and everyone believes that she in fact was the person to make that happen. So she's kind of known as sort of the Black Widow. She is very, very biting and cruel and very antagonistic towards Spider at first, but they have absolutely amazing chemistry together, and also the banter in this one is off the charts. I absolutely love this one, and I love both of their characters, and I really love Raina. Now, in order to save her niece and to save the family, she does agree to marry Spider, and they end up getting married. And on the wedding night, that's when Spider finds out how scarred Raina actually is, because I mentioned that her first husband, was extremely abusive towards her, and in fact he used to beat and whip her quite severely, and she has a lot of scars literally from her neck down. So most of her torso and back are covered in scars. Now, a lot of them she has covered up with tattoos, but it's very, very obvious when Spider sees her without clothes for the first time exactly what's happened. And she is very scared to be intimate with a man. She is worried about what Spider's going to do and how he's going to treat her. But of course, Spider is nothing but caring and kind and tender towards Raina. And like I said, they have amazing chemistry together, and they quickly form a very strong relationship and fall in love. So I absolutely love this one, would highly recommend. And although this was about scarred heroes, I absolutely wanted to mention this one because I think it's very rare that you actually come across a scarred heroine, and Raina definitely deserves a shout out in this video. So there we have it. That is 8 recommendations for scarred heroes and 1 heroine. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content from me. And if you have read any books with scarred heroes that you want to recommend to me or anyone else who's watching this video, please put that down in the comments box below. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Right, so at first he's going to marry the niece. At first he's going to marry the niece. But Cora obviously doesn't choose to be with Growl. Essentially what happens is that Cora's... I'm saying Cora, but is it Cora? It is Cora, that's good. I don't have to re-record that whole section. Good, good, good. The thing is, Cora didn't choose to be with Growl. What actually happened was that Cora's father did something. So Cora's father scarred heroes. Right. Scarred heroes.